As we've been highlighting the last couple of days, things are getting extraordinarily dangerous with regards to Iran. Uh, it's very important to emphasize this is immediate history that the Joint Plan of Action Agreement was working. There was no objective source, and no, even by the way, one would presume highly biased source that questioned its efficacy. The Trump administration signed off on the deal early on. That trigger, by the way, that the Secretary of State, that the State Department had to re-sign the deal, I believe recertify it every 6 months, that's not part of the international agreement. That was a side poison pill inserted by Congress to beat Obama over the head for recertifying it, and presumably I think what actually most Republicans also assumed would be a Democratic, a Hillary Clinton presidency. The Iranians have stepped out of the agreement to some extent, which, frankly, it makes a lot of sense. Why would they maintain an agreement? Their economy is being strangled. They've lived up to every end of the bargain. And the United States is dangerous, belligerent, dishonest, and bullying the Chinese and the Europeans. This is Mike Pompeo continuing on that path. I mean, listen to just... It's, you have to know the imperial hubris and the profound arrogance of this. This is Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Pause it. I can't hear it, guys. Okay.
What we've been trying to do is to get Iran to behave like a normal nation. We laid out 12 elements of that. Every single one of those elements is consistent with what we ask every other country in the world to do. So these are not Iran-specific, things like not conducting assassination campaigns around the world, not sponsoring terror organizations that inflict missile attacks on Israel, now 600 plus, not building missile systems in Yemen. I mean, these are things we ask every country to do. That's our objective. That's been our goal from the beginning. I've been working on this since I was a member of Congress. Our objective is to get the Islamic Republic of Iran to behave like a normal nation. When they do that, we will welcome them back.
So, and I have no doubt, yes, Mike Pompeo has been already a profoundly pernicious influence in foreign policy going back to his time in the House. But look, he mentions Yemen. The United States has partnered with Saudi Arabia in a campaign that murders and savages civilians on a daily basis in Yemen. The Houthi rebels were, in fact, not clients of Iran, and the relationship between them and the Iranian state has actually been significantly increased post Saudi U.S. supported mass murder campaign beginning in 2015. And, look, Israel certainly conducts assassination campaigns. Israel conducts collective punishment. The Saudis have an enormous amount of blood on their hands in Syria and Yemen, and of course have certainly funded and emanated terrorist groups. Again, does Iran engage in some of these behaviors? Undoubtedly. Does the United States engage in a lot of these behaviors? Undoubtedly. And obviously the Saudis and the Israelis. The point was that this agreement solved a very specific goal on proliferation and opened the door to potentially solving other problems. And that's why the world is in a much less safe place. But that's the plan and the agenda of people like Pompeo. They're dangerous extremists. Now, Donald Trump, again, I don't know how much we can buy into this, obviously, because the truth of the matter is that he doesn't have much. He doesn't think about these things. He has random impulses. His main trigger point with Iran was that Obama had a great foreign policy achievement, so he was aggrieved and needed to ruin it. But I think, even as this kind of never-ending push for regime change, for a coup in Venezuela continues to fail, I think that Trump seems to have some allergy, or maybe even as he gets back on the trail, some sense that part of his broader scheme was a kind of Buchananite message on non-intervention. So in this clip, first he's going to lie about John Kerry, And if anything, my sense is that John Kerry has been out of office publicly trying to preserve a successful deal that made the world better that he helped negotiate. But Trump is, going to lie about him and threaten him with the Logan Act, which is very in keeping with the authoritarian nature of this regime. And then on the other hand, it looks like Donald Trump all of a sudden, and again, this maybe was maybe if the Iranians, as soon as Trump got into office, were like, hey, would you like to open some hotels here? And we have a new idea, my friend. The joint plan of action is called the Great Trump Peace Agreement. This problem's all might have been solved. Trump probably would have agreed to that within a matter of days. But here he is, basically begging the president of Iran to call him and offering the Obama deal. And if, North Korea is any indication, obviously, it would end up being an even more generous deal from an Iranian point of view. But here's Donald Trump.
What I'd like to see with Iran, I'd like to see them call me. John Kerry speaks to them a lot. John Kerry tells them not to call. That's a violation of the Logan Act. And frankly, he should be prosecuted on that. But my people don't want to do anything that's... Only the Democrats do that kind of stuff.
Historically, the Republicans did this, specifically Richard Nixon to the LBJ administration as they were trying to end the Vietnam
Right. Wasn't that the one that Kissinger was like a double agent at the
Yeah.
Paris Peace Accords, specifically to prolong the Vietnam War to help Richard Nixon's electoral
he jumped from
prospects?
Rockefeller to Nixon using his connections with the Dragon Lady of Vietnam. I forget what
Oh,
her
no,
name is.
of Taiwan.
Of Taiwan,
Shanghai
yeah.
Shek's wife.
Oh,
Madame
right.
Shanghai Shek, yes. Major figure in right-wing politics. And, of course, there's a lot of interesting reporting on how long the hostages may have stayed there, potentially in additional days, when Ronald Reagan was running to deregulate Wall Street.
Only the Democrats do this stuff.
But I don't play tough like the Democrats.
Don't want to do anything that's... Only the Democrats do that kind of stuff.
Right.
If it were the opposite way, they'd prosecute him under the Logan Act. But John Kerry violated the Logan Act. He's talking to Iran and has many meetings and many phone calls, and he's telling them what to do. That is a total violation of the Logan Act.
Okay, of course, Don Kerry released a statement saying that Donald Trump is wrong in every regard, essentially, and I think we can, of course, safely assume that he is. And good. And by the way, if John Kerry is informally, and I'm sure with lawyer consultations within the letter of the law, having back channels to the Iranians, and I think it was reported a couple years ago that he might have met some people in Paris who had connections to the Islamic Republic and basically was saying, like, hold tight, this lunatic won't be president forever. Good. That's the most productive use of John Kerry's time. Thank you, John Kerry. Quote, and he said, I just want to say, just briefly from The Guardian, the Trump administration had previously insisted that Iran would have to fulfill a list of 12, this is the Pompeo thing, 12 wide-ranging conditions, including non-intervention in Syria, Yemen, and Iraq in order for sanctions to be lifted. Trump's remarks suggested that a new deal on the nuclear program would be enough. And Iran's ambassador to the UN said once again, this is the ambassador, the first question he has to answer is why he left the negotiating table, because we were talking to all participants of the nuclear deal, including the U.S. So all of a sudden he decided to leave the negotiating table. What is the guarantee that he will not renege again on the future talks between Iran and the U.S.? And this is Kerry's statement. Everything President Trump today said is simply wrong. End of story. He's wrong about the facts, wrong about the law, and soundly he's been wrong about how to use diplomacy to keep America safe.
I'm right about the Logan Act. I'm a constitutional scholar. And the Logan Act is when a country likes another prominent American leader more than they like our president.
It was named after a great man named Logan.
Who was a very loyal
He was
guy.
very loyal. And then Logan would have razor blades come out of his knuckles when he got mad. Is that right? What is it?
Oh, is that an X-Men
Thinking of
reference?
X-Men. I'm
I'm
trying to
the
think
wrong
of
guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Wolverine. Very loyal guy.
There's Logan, the one
Tough
with the
guy.
laser eyes. I don't know. I can't remember.
She had laser eyes because we don't control our borders anymore.
How many meetings are you having? Why am I not invited to these meetings? I do
Maybe-
good meetings.
Does anybody think that maybe I'd like to meet Persian academics in Paris?
You guys can use a Trump
Yeah.
hotel property. for
Yeah, why can't we
meetings.
use a Trump hotel property? No one ever thinks. There's a phrase called wet our beaks.
Just feel a little bit left out.
Feel a little bit left out. And then he looked around and he said, the Don will get paid for this. After all, we are not communists. But that's what AOC wants. That's what Crazy Bernie wants. The